What is going on, guys, and happy Monday night. Now, we're doing the stream, I guess, a day late because of the holiday and market being closed. So we're looking at futures right now. What I want to do is obviously dive through a couple setups that I'm at least looking at, overall market conditions and whatnot. And then, of course, we'll dive into some questions and all that stuff. But I am seeing a few questions first. We can cover some of that in the first few minutes while people start jumping on in. So when it comes to share size, building a small account, so what I would do with a cash account personally myself, and what I did was, let's say, like for example, if you're talking about a $1,200 roughly account, right? So if you're talking about a $1,200 account, you want to make sure that you're not like using up like $600 one day, or more. So for me, what I would do is probably look to be in that 200 to 400 range in terms of using that much cash per day for day trades, and that's probably how I'd go about it. If you're going for swings, a little bit of a different story because you may not be selling those right the next day or that same day, obviously. So $200 to $400 seems like a decent spot. It also keeps your position sizing relatively small. So worst case scenario, one day is not going to blow up your account at the same time. So I think that's a great way to go about it, especially when starting out. That's why I really recommend a cash account. Number one, because you don't have day trade restrictions. And then number two, because you're able to start small and stack small wins. So I think that's a great way to go about it. Let's see. Hope everyone is doing good. Let's see. Happy 4th. Happy 4th, Melbourne Beach, Florida, Austin, Texas right here. Let me know where you guys are hanging out from as we dive in. But futures are, let's go back to those really quick. They're, kind of green again. So tech's, pretty much even, but everything else is slightly green. So we'll see how this plays out. We do want to point out crude oil again. I love the ads on some of these sites. Like investing.com is just like completely overrun with ads. I guess you can use an ad blocker and whatnot. A lot of these sites don't even let you use one these days, which is kind of annoying. I know FinViz is like absolutely horrible for ads if you have the free version. So, I mean, if you're going to get the paid version, I mean, it's honestly kind of worth it. But at the same time, you can get an ad blocker, and then all it'll tell you on the side of the FinViz screen will be like, we censor using an ad blocker, like enable ads so that like our site can, continue. And you just say, no, sorry. And you can get it without ads with an ad blocker. But some sites you can't. So crude oil, 76 is up, this is where we kind of are sitting up with crude oil. So I'll be definitely watching that one next week for sure. A lot of oil plays I still think have more room to run, but, obviously we'll see how the market, how things play out. We got Boston, Minnesota, where it's hot. Central Maine, Dallas, Texas, PRVB. Oh, we can start diving into the overall outlooks and everything like that. So let's dive into some stocks. Okay, so I want to pull up SPY. I started to buy some puts on SPY just as a little hedge, nothing crazy, not trying to time a downturn. Of course, you can never time that. You can be that perpetual bear and lose a lot of money as this market keeps going up. So take a look at this. I mean, we did kind of make an extension up on Friday that looked pretty strong into this week. So we'll see how it plays out. But the market still, is still doing quite well. In terms of SPY, 50 SMA bounce, this blue line, it's been holding quite well. It's been showing, it's just been super bullish the past couple of months. It did dip below a couple of times here back at the, second half of 2020 into the fall months. But quickly recovered after a couple of days below, and then recovered and is pretty much holding that 50 SMA, at least a lot of the bodies of these candles for, the past couple of months. And it's been strong. So, things are strong. But again, you can look at that and be like, this doesn't seem right. We're due for something. Who knows? I mean, at this rate, let's look at how much we are up from the start of 2021. So if we go back to 2021, we're right in here, roughly. We are up roughly 16, 17% in terms of the S&P. That's already, halfway through the year, that's already, beating the average return. So, take that into account. But when you see a very, very strong first half like we've seen, statistics tell you that you generally see a strong second half. So, we're kind of in that interesting situation. So we'll see how it plays out. PRVB, we can pull up this guy. I have a couple stocks I also want to pull up, obviously, like always. So this is actually sitting up right here over the 50 SMA. Would like to see it holding $8, but that chart doesn't look too bad. If it holds $8, it looks like it's trying to hold up that roughly that $8 level seems to be, important. 50 SMA just below 8, so you could give it down to that 50 SMA. with, plenty of range to the upside. I'd say you're looking for targets here, probably $10 and further would be what I'd be looking at with a stop loss. If it holds below 8, I'd cut it. Or if it falls below that 785, that 50 SMA on the daily chart, I'd cut it. Honestly, probably targeting up towards the 200 SMA, which is certainly just over 12 as we speak right now. CEI, rinse and repeat. Exactly. This is an example we'll see how this one plays out. But in my experience with CEI, it's actually, it's done quite well for the way I'm trading this stock. I'm ultimately looking for news. I'm looking for CEI to get a nice press release one of these days. CEO has hinted at something coming, so I'm waiting for that. And I'm waiting for that to happen ultimately for the bigger move to get out of my entire position, depending upon what that press release is and how the stock reacts. But while we're sitting here, oil is still holding up. And so while we're sitting here, I just rinse and repeat, right? Sell into pops and reload dips. And if you look at the past couple of days, right, we zoom out here. I mean, get this view nice and easy. It hasn't been like a crazy mover in terms of like, okay, the thing went 100%. No. But from this rough consolidation that we've kind of had in this like mid 60 range, you've had a couple pops, one pop right here for 25% and another one right here for about 15%. So you've had these opportunities to take something off your position and then reload back in. I know some people may be in from a much higher average. And so even if that's the case, this is an example of managing a trade, right? So this is an example of just managing a swing that you ultimately see. You look at the history on CEI, you look at the float, you look at market cap numbers, and I'm looking at this stock saying, this is one chunk, just one nice, juicy piece of news away from a crazy day. It's done it before. It has that history. It's a cult stock. It's made that kind of run before, in a sense. And so that's what I'm looking for, right? We saw the beginning of 2021, made a great stride heading up over $3. It has that range. It's holding up very, very nicely down here in the upper 50s to around 60. That's a nice consolidation range, and there's plenty of room back up. I would say, personally, myself, I would be targeting the 200 SMA, so up towards $1 is my first real target. But of course, I'm not selling my entire position there. I'll be trimming along the way up and then reloading if it comes back down, which I think I did. Maybe add a touch of CEI on Friday. But if it drops under 65, I'll be adding right back in. So I took off, probably about a third to almost a half of my position. And then I'll re-add that third to a half right back if it comes back down to those levels that it was just sitting at. So that's the plan for that one. Let's see. SPY and QQQ really extend. Yes. Compared to IWM. So that's what I'm interested to see in terms of IWM. So look at this. It's just like it's ready to just pop. So I'm curious to see the correlation here. Does SPY and QQQ, do they keep going straight up? And does IWM eventually fall and blow up? Because this is looking like a very strong resistance that could lead to a pretty big breakout for small caps, which could be crazy, right, going forward. Or do we see SPY and QQQ pull back a little bit, kind of consolidate, and then do we see that's what signals small caps? Do the small caps heat up when everything else kind of slows down? That's the question I think we have. So I think we'll get some more clarity on that this week and next week, so we'll see how that plays out. Again, a short week, so we're not going to get too much data, but we'll see. I'm expecting some action here, of course, right? Obviously, we're getting into the summer months, so generally things slow down across small cap land, but doesn't seem to be the case, at least as of right now. We're still seeing some crazy runners. I'm sadly can't stay too long. Appreciate it, Nick, though. Appreciate it. Everyone hit that thumbs up button. That is all we ask for the stream. That is it. Let's see. Any video on beginner technical analysis? Yes. Check out. There should be a technical analysis or technical indicator playlist on the channel, and we have some good videos there right off the bat. PRVB has a PDUFA. That's a catalyst right there. I personally don't want to be holding through the date, but a run-up play for PRBV we just talked about a few minutes ago, that's not a bad idea by any means. For sure, that's a great idea. Stocks I'm looking at buying for swings, WTRH, BIRD, or BRID. WTRH is an interesting one. I'm actually curious how that one's doing because this is one that has made some runs in the past, and we got to zoom this bad boy out and see how this guy's been holding up. Okay, so let's see if it holds up around this 175. Seems to be a key area, 175. If 175 cracks, this could come down quite a bit more, but that 175 seems to be key. So we'll watch this on how it plays out, but it does kind of have that range of the upside. Obviously, like we look back to where it was, a year ago, this thing was hitting up over $5. So it has that range for sure. What SMA time periods do you use? When I look at these simple moving averages, I'm looking at the 50 period and the 200 period SMA, but only on the 1 year, 1 day. So I have them popping up if I go to like the 1 minute chart, like they'll show up, but I personally don't really care for them. Maybe the 50 SMA sometimes is helpful on the 1 minute. Some stocks will respect that as a good trend, but it's mostly for daily charts. It's mostly for swings. So that's generally what I'm looking at when I'm watching these indicators. And at the same time, I use them to help guide things, right? For example, you go back to WTRH's run when it made its initial pop. They're really, really helpful, I think, for the early stages of a stock's kind of movements in terms of, I guess, relevancy. So WTRH was kind of like a last year play in a sense. Now, who knows? It can come back, right? Obviously going forward. I'm not sure the catalyst and whatnot, but in a sense, right, it really got going last year after its initial crazy run from like a sub 25 cent stock. It pops up, it hits up over $4, it comes back down. Where is it holding up? It's holding on that 50 SMA. It doesn't go below that 50 SMA. So that was kind of like your guide that you could be kind of thrown on a position, adding to your position at that 50 SMA and selling into overextensions where the RSI gets oversold, where you see a spike up where it's up over 25% in 1 day. That's where you kind of scale out. And then eventually your signal to kind of get out of this guy was right here when it cracked below that 50 SMA and then it fell below and it showed that it was no longer holding that level. Boom, that could have been your signal to get out. And ever since then, it's kind of been consolidating sideways and then slowly pulling back. Now, it certainly could be due, it was a year ago it made that run. It certainly could be due for another run, but that was a kind of a great indicator where we kind of saw that first early stage of a reversal of a bigger move. We had some news, the stock starts pushing up. 50 SMA generally is a great kind of support buy, dip buy strategy type of play. I love it a lot. It works on a lot of trades, but it's just an indicator. It's not always perfect for sure. HOF v. Catalyst with betting law in Ohio, as well as HOF Hall of Fame game with Dallas now featured on Hard Knocks. Let's pull up HOF v. This has been a crazy one. It kind of cracked that trend that I roughly had here. It did crack the 50 SMA roughly, but we do have some support here down towards $3. So I think anything under $4 seems to be decent in my opinion. To start accumulating something for the next kind of push as we get in towards the that time period. Again, this is a stock that I really liked as a really good reopening play a couple months back when it was like sub 150. Back in here after it had a really crazy pop, it fell off and did an offering, I believe, and then it's done quite well since. So I really have to say I'm very, I wouldn't say surprised with the movement, but I'm glad to see that it made a nice recovery ever since that period that we were looking at. Remember it was back in December-ish roughly. We were looking at that. I remember I had it for a swing. I sold it a good chunk because it made a pretty big move early. Never added back in, and it made a much bigger move later with the NFT angle that they have as well. So that is interesting. Okay, PLTR. Let's dive into Palantir. This is definitely it had a great trend ever since the earnings report. Great trend, but it started to pull back. So we'll see now if it can hold. So look at this. Palantir, right? It was rejected by that 50 SMA a couple times back in the earlier mid-spring, okay? And then it finally broke through, and it held above. Okay, now it's come back down to that level. So let's see if 2350-ish will hold. That's about another $1 down from where it's at. So that's support right now in terms of indicator support. Below that, we probably will have some support in the lower 20s. So we'll see if that holds up on Palantir. It did have resistance, which makes sense here at this 2750 because look at this. Look back to the left. There is a high right here up around that 2750 as well. Also some consolidation. We can draw in a better little box to get a better view on this, but also some consolidation right here. So this is an area that in the past was consolidation. It's going to be an area that has to grind up through for Palantir. So you're going to have, once it gets back over $30, then it kind of opens up. It gets into this little gap, a gap fill up to about 31.25. Then you have some more room in terms of less resistance chart-wise that has to grind through. So that's what we watch on Palantir. But it's also, in my opinion, it's just a longer, it's in my IRA. So I am not intending to sell this one like super soon. Now the IRA is great because you're not paying taxes on your gains there, but at the same time I also view my IRA as like stash something away and kind of forget about it type of idea. So like I have PLTR in there, I have VISL, which I still have in my main swing account too, but I have it in there as well. And then I believe I want to add into some SoFi, which brings me to SoFi, which is one that I have on my list for a swing this week. SoFi looks really good. I like it down here at 18 bucks. Anything under 18, I will just be adding into that one. I think this is one that you honestly stash away for the long term. Personally, I think it's going to be a $50 plus stock in the next couple of years pretty easily, which would be great returns as it is. I mean, honestly, if you look back and if you can buy something, forget about it for a couple of years, and then it significantly outpaced the market as it is, I mean, that's a win in my eyes. If you don't have to even manage it, you don't have to micromanage here and here, here and there. So I think SoFi is one of those plays for sure going forward. Let's see. It says my chat is disconnected. Oh, that's not good. Oh, hopefully that comes back. Let me see if I can refresh this screen on the side. But let me dive into some other stuff that I am at least looking at outside of some of these. I want to pull up some other swing ideas that I want to look at least going forward. So let's see. I do want to pull up RIG. Was one that I didn't day trade it. It's super strong. I'm getting errors. Hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully, if not, worst case scenario, it should stay up on their channel, so you can always come back to this if it's being wonky right now. RIG, we dive into this guy. Tons of insider buying as of late, which I love to see. So that's great. Outside of that, $5 was kind of an area to watch. It's generally a very strong area of resistance in stocks that are below 5, and it's grinded its way back on up above 5. So I will be watching to see how $5 holds up for a breakout level for a nice move, maybe $5.56, even $7, relatively short term, with oil also being high. So that's one of my ideas for a swing. I'll be looking to buy dips on this one while it holds the trend, holding 50 SMA as well. So while that one holds the trend, we're sitting nice and pretty on it. I can't complain. I want to see that one continuing to build. I will be looking to get back into that one. I just want to take some profits because I was in from like 450-ish or something like that. Nothing crazy position size wise. But because I was in from that level, it popped to 5-ish, and I was like, I want to make sure I have a bigger chunk of cash going into the weekend. And so that was really what it was. I wanted to roughly have, I think, like 20% of my account cash, or 15 to 20% minimum. I don't really like to have, honestly, going into the weekend with less cash than that in the account. It does kind of scare me in a sense. Not scare me, but I just feel a little more comfortable having a little bit of a higher cash position, ideally, going into that. So that said, I do want to look at some other stuff going forward. NEO is one stock that also comes to mind for a pretty high watch into this week. Why? Because they just had those June report. They just had their June report for their deliveries, and numbers came out, and we had to sell the news. So it stock hit $55. So sell the news. I want to see if it holds up around 50 first. If not, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it pull back to about 47 or so. And that's the thing. What I did in my other longer term account, which I do have NEO in, is I did trade around a core position size, if that makes some sense. So what do I mean by that? Is I actually took some profits ahead of that, those delivery numbers, just because I know that that's always a very kind of, binary event in a sense, where you see sometimes you get these delivery numbers and, either they're going to be good or they're going to be bad, or the market's going to react one way or another. So I want to make sure that I'm just cautious into that event, generally speaking. And then, I'm okay with if it blows up and goes crazy, great. If not, at least I protect my downside a tiny bit. So I scaled some of it out. But that said, what I also want to do is I want to pull this up really quick just because I am missing out on the chat. Okay, boom. My screen on the left-hand side just went red on me here, so I can now see the chat. Okay, that's my take on NEO. I will be looking to add those shares I trimmed off in that account back in, with the core size obviously still being held up, so I'm not really too concerned about that. Let's see. MRIN. We definitely got to talk about MRIN for sure. Okay, let's see. BRQS. I'm seeing a bunch of BRQS as well. We can dive into some of that too. All right, let's look at MRIN first because this is one that's been absolutely insane. So, MRIN. The thing went to 25. Okay, pulled back towards the end of the day, but it was still up near 30%. The thing has been straight up. I'm not gonna say I got blown up. I lost a lot of money on this one at the early part of the week. I will never let one stock blow me up in a sense. just because that's how I manage my risk and I've learned from past mistakes, obviously. But it was not a fun one to be in short early this week because I was looking at it last week saying, this is definitely going to come back down. And my mistake was once it cracked up over the highs from Friday afternoon on Monday morning, that was my signal to get out. I didn't get out. I held it into the open, thought it was going to get kind of a fake out and pull back at the open and shorts would hammer it. Shorts didn't hammer it, the longs won, and then next thing you know, the thing was trading up over, $8 in, a matter of, hours from then. I cut it off before then. I actually went long and day traded a little bit around it, but the trend has been solid. So we want to see how this one holds up. It's kind of holding $20. It could dip below $20 and then recover, but $20 is a key level. So if we can see if MRIN holds $20, that would be something we definitely want to be paying attention to into this week. $20, that's at least where I'm watching. So it holds $20, it can probably continue to push higher. If it can't hold $20 and it fails under 20, shorts will try to attack it. But again, at that point, we've kind of reached, to a degree, I don't want to say it's a meme stock, but it's gotten so much attention that it's definitely caught a lot of people's eyes who may or may not have been paying attention. And it's a very obvious short here. It's an obvious short. It's a super low flow. The power behind this one, relative to like an AMC or another meme stock, is that the float is so small. So it takes a lot less money from retail traders to tie up that float and to run this thing up compared to, let's say, an AMC, which you have a significantly higher float. Number one, you have a higher price stock and a higher float amount of shares available to the public to trade. You need a lot more behind it. Now, of course, you do have a lot more behind AMC, I will say, for sure. But if we see a little bit of a shift, all you need is a little bit of that shift to shift over into a stock like this, which I think we saw a little bit last week. And next thing you know, it's holding up. So I will not be touching this thing short. If anything, I'd be going long because I think at this point, you're trapping more and more shorts. It's an obvious short. But if you do go long, right, I would have a very hard stop in place. So for example, if I go long on this stock, I put a stop loss just below $20 and ride it for the day, and that's it. And then of course, if let's say I get in this thing, it dips at the open down to about 20 and holds 20 and then bounces. Okay, I enter my position. I'll put a stop loss at like 19, like let's say 87. Okay, great. And then if it hits it, or stock pushes up, I'll immediately bring my stop loss up above my average, lock in, it's a free trade. If it wants to go absolutely nuts, I'm there for it. If it wants to get killed, I lock in gains, or I take a small loss if it gets hit pretty quickly, into the open with my stop loss set. So that's how I would trade this one personally, if anything. And I would probably stay away unless I get bored or want to have or play a lottery position play, and that's it. And it's a pure lottery play. Generally at this point, I think these types of plays could last much longer. They could keep going a lot longer than you think, in reality, but we'll see what happens. Who knows if they want to raise some capital, file for an S3 or whatnot. I don't think they have one on file, so we'll see. Okay, let's see. That's MRIN. Let's see. Not sure if you've seen NTLA, ran from 80. I actually do have another one that I do want to pull up, but let's take a look at NTLA. Let's pull this guy up. That was a nice run. 85 to 200, hit 202, announced closing of a public offering. Would have been a good short higher up, but still has some room to come down. Yeah, it does. It definitely does. But at the same time, this trend seems pretty strong. So this is not a bad idea though. If you're looking at even options on this guy, I'm curious. Even think about options on this guy. Are they even worth it? Strike prices are every $15, or no, every $5. Okay, this could be a short as well for sure. Just watching. I don't know the news exactly what drove it down. What drove it up, and obviously the offering pulled it back. But we do have to watch. You can watch every $5 would be roughly areas I'd be watching. So for example, right here, the low of the day from Friday, so 162. Under 160, it probably has some range down to like 155. And then from there's a gap down here all the way down to about, this looks like $90. So this has a lot of range potentially to the downside just for a pullback, and even if the short term, but we did a very strong, this is actually look like a very strong chart in my opinion, because prior to this move, because look at this consolidation move. Very nice consolidation, putting in higher lows. You had a kind of upper resistance here at $90. Boom, you broke through. But usually these gaps get filled, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get a pullback and then bounce from like that $100 or that $90 at some point in the future. Wouldn't be a terrible chart play. Of course, there's more driving behind it, but not a bad idea. Also want to get into AHT. I'm not sure if I should go before the reverse split or what. Yeah, to be honest, AHT is just, I think it's a mess for a lot of people who are freaking out about it. In my opinion, I totally messed up on that trade. That's just but the thing is, like, I take, full responsibility for it's my problem. I lost, more than I should have lost on it. I'm still in it. For the next few months is my plan, but that could change, right? If I see some stuff I don't like going forward about how they're, about earning in the earnings or whatnot, then yeah, I could certainly cut it. But at this point, to me, I'm not looking to actually add into AHT. I think we may see some more downside this week, going into the reverse split. Also, just see some more panic selling going on this week. So I'm personally not going to touch my position. But at some point, ideally, to manage my position here, I'm going to want to add in at least a decent chunk and then look to scale out fairly soon on a pop if we get some, and then hold a little bit more for a bigger move if I still think that that's possible. If not, I will be taking, that's it. I move on. I like the thesis, the idea of the stock, of the trade this summer into the early fall. But if we don't get that move, I'll probably get impatient and I'll cut it. That's it. That's just my plan. So if you're not in it, obviously after the drop, you're getting a much better average than some people who have a much higher average, who are the average down. Those people, the bag holders right now, are going to be the first ones to sell. So the bag holders are going to be the first ones to sell into pops. So you're going to it's going to struggle the next couple of weeks, I think, at least, unless there's some crazy news coming, which I doubt. But it's going to struggle, I think, for sure the next couple of weeks, because you have a lot of people who are going to average down and then immediately get out the second it pops, 5%, 10% on a day or, within a week. So that's the concern with AHT. However, if you can, many times what I've seen is that you grind through that period, which takes a few months, a few weeks, roughly. Sometimes if there's a bigger move coming, if the trade or if the play works out the way some are thinking, at least that's my plan. But I don't recommend anyone necessarily follow me. I'll have your own plan in place, obviously. So that's that. Just managing a mess up, managing a mistake, which is all good. Personally, I'd probably wait. I'd just give it a few days, give it a few weeks, honestly, on that one. I think they're going to have opportunities potentially lower, or even if you don't get it lower on AHT, there'll be opportunities just when you see a better consolidation period. Axis oil play with earnings this week. I would not be touching earnings because who knows what's going to happen there, but that could be the catalyst that sends it. So this is definitely one that I've had on a list in terms of Oilers. If you look back at this chart, it has tons of range. It's a low float. This is definitely a stock that has that potential. So it's on the watch list, probably for a day trade idea. For me, unless that earnings is really good, I honestly wouldn't also be opposed to the short side of some of these oil plays in the next couple of months. If we do see crude oil pulling back, and if we do get spikes, these oil stocks are almost it could change, right? But it seems like until we see a full sector shift, these oil stocks are extremely pop and drop. Like they're just like pops and drops. And so HUSA is a perfect example of that, right? I love this one. I've made good money on this one, but look at the stock, right? It had a crazy pop. It had 2 days where it popped, but it dropped back literally right after. So these are not, now of course, right? When it's an obvious short, that's where the shorts lose. But if you can catch it, not necessarily as it's going up, but as it's coming back down, there's usually a good opportunity for the short side of these things. So wait for pops, and it's not a terrible short on the downside. Maybe not short. I wouldn't short these stocks right back to where they were because of how oil's been doing, but they could be shorts at some point down the road. However, right now you do not want to be buying these things. The reason why I mentioned that is because you don't want to be buying these things up. Okay, you want to be buying them as low as you possibly can when things are quiet. So if things are quiet early this week on a lot of oil plays, look to grab some HUSA, look to grab some, maybe AXAS is not a good example with earnings. Look to grab some HUSA, maybe some CEI is a better bottom chart personally, I think. There's also BRN, this one as well at the 50 SMA. I like this one a lot. BRN's a good one too. Grab it when it's quiet, grab it when it's low. GBR, grab it when it's quiet, grab it when it's low. GBR is also notorious for it never holds gains. So the thing pops and the next day it's down, 25+% off of where it was, minimum, And so that's just been, when you have a day on GBR where it's up over 50% in a day, it comes down hard the next day generally. That's just the pattern of history. So you do not want to be going long these things and chasing them super high. However, took a GBR. Low float stock, it's coming right back on down. Yeah, could it come down to like 450? Sure. But, it's one of those where you have a lot more upside range here. Oil stays hot. These are going to be stocks that I'll be watching and probably looking to get in and out of, this week for sure. So that leads me also into some shippers because I do want to mention some of these shipping plays. So CTRM is one that I am watching just because I'm not a big fan of the shippers. I'm not at all. I'm watching CTRM because it's definitely a stock that has had a cult kind of following in the past. And it's sitting on an area I would love to see 250 roughly holding up as support. If it holds that level this week, I'll probably get back in. I was in it. I just trimmed it because I wanted to kind of consolidate my positions. I'll probably get back in this guy next week on CTRM. And then there's also SHIP. How is SHIP doing? Let's see. SHIP, C Energy is a 50 SMA bouncer kind of almost setting up here as well. We can also draw in potentially a trend line as well. Roughly setting up right there. Higher lows being put in. We'd love to see SHIP holding $1. I don't really want to see SHIP falling below 1, although it has and rebounded in the past. So let's see how this one plays out. But you're getting a better average right than it was a few days back. So some shippers are not setting up honestly too terrible. Let's see. A lot of puts on NTLA still. Body. Reopening play, earnings coming out next month. I like Body a lot. This is, what was this, FRX? Was the SPAC? Body, let's pull up Body. Where is this guy sitting up? So it's under 10 now. It did dip below briefly. I think it, after this pullback, it briefly popped to 1350. Great. I believe I personally, this was in my IRA as well. I trimmed, and then I'm looking to add back here because I saw that pop, and generally what I've been noticing was a lot of these SPACs just haven't been doing quite well early on, and it's still not really a super hot SPAC market. It was a few months back. It's not right now, and so I wanted to ideally get this one under $10, and that's what you have the ability to do right now. So we'll see if it holds under 10. That's an opportunity, in my opinion, to load up for the long term on Beachbody. Personally, that's just my longer term play as well. I would say if I had to pick a couple kind of speculative longer term plays to throw into the IRA and forget about almost, would be Beachbody, would be SoFi. VISL is kind of a super speculative, more penny stock play. That's my third one I would put in there. And then outside of that would be kind of, I would position myself maybe into some other ones, maybe like the Teslas, the Neos, those types of EV plays that I still think will outpace the market over the next couple of years. That still have some range. So looking at dips on those plays, not necessarily buying them, necessarily right here, although I still see a bigger picture, and then as well as maybe putting into some ETFs, even dividend plays, S&P ETFs, just to kind of, hold up some of your cash in your IRA or in a longer term account, just so that you can at least model the market worst case scenario. And that's been paying off quite well, at least lately, right? So let's see. SPRT, find me a better daily chart in the market, please. Let's take a look at this. SPRT. SPRT, is that correct? Here it is. This thing has bounced off that 200 SMA beautifully, held up around that 250 very nicely. Came down, tested that 50, held up, holding $4 now and looking for a bigger move. So over 450, then we have some spikes up here towards $5. Over $5 will be key. This is setting up. Over $5 looks really good for a much bigger move. There is a little bit of resistance going to be up here towards 550, but over those levels, there is range for sure on this chart. AHG been beautiful stock the past 18 months. For a much lower average, people did quite well on AHG. Again, though, if you look at AHG, I'll pull up the chart. If you look at AHG now, it's getting back down to those same levels. That was a decent spot to pick it up. So, okay, well, yes, this chart showing it at around $4, it fell a lot more in the after hours. There was reverse split news and dilution news. So it's actually trading at 290, which if I draw a line in on that would put us, 290 puts us right here. So AHG is going to be trading right back where a lot of action took place the past couple of months. So yeah, could it come lower? Yeah, sure, right? So that's why I'm not looking to add it just yet. But if we do get a hard dip down, I'll probably take that dip on AHT. That's what I'll be adding into kind of my bag in a sense, just managing my position there on that one. Because I messed up. I bought it way too high. Thought there was a lot more range to go, and I bought in too high. Thought momentum would continue. It didn't. And then we got this news. I'm not a big fan of the news. I really am not. CEO kind of dirty move, jumps on Twitter, and next thing you know, he's dropping a reverse split, offering, it's like, okay, that's usually the sign. So it's funny because AMC, right, he kind of followed in the footsteps of AMC CEO, getting on Twitter, kind of joining the momentum and everything, because AHG a couple weeks back was, like almost a meme stock almost, right? It got a lot of attention. It got a lot. But generally, right, when that happens, when the CEO makes a Twitter and the CEO starts talking like that, it's just usually not a good sign. Usually he kind of gave the vibe of like he's here for the stock price and not the company. But this move with the reverse split made the argument, right? He made the argument saying, here, we're here for the longevity of this, of the appeal to investors and the longevity here. We don't care about the stock price. Who knows? We'll see. Because of course he knew, right, when they did that, they knew that they were going to drop the price. They almost knew. Now, of course, did they sell a lot of their shares? There was some insider selling. So did they dump some shares? Possibly, right? In the process, which is, you hate to see that from a company standpoint. So we'll see. But a lot of times they don't have to file that stuff. Actually, let me pull it up for like 30 days, I believe. So the last thing we see on AHT was the chief accounting officer dumped on June 2nd. This was filed this was filed a while back, but he dropped how many shares? About $405,000 worth of shares, at $6 on that little move up. I mean, that's not think about that. That was probably a smart move, to be honest. If you have more details into the company, yeah, you probably have a decent idea. Hey, this is probably going to come back down. I'll take some profits here. I'll at least, unlock some of my cash and add a shares here. Yeah, also, I'm generally someone who doesn't like to play a lot of hype, and I did stupidly play into that one too, which I usually don't do, but it is what it is. Let's see. Dropped to 150, 250 range post-split, making it $15-20. Yeah, that's probably where I'm looking to add in, maybe like $2-ish if it does fall that far, which, again, right, you're probably going to see another area of panic selling because those who may be bag holding are going to get to that point of like, oh my gosh. And then that's where I'll look to add into my position at that point. And then if I can get at least a mercy exit, maybe I take the mercy exit at some point. Obviously, right, it's one stock, it's one play, right? There's a million other plays you can go after. So that's how I'm going to manage it. I just don't want to like throw away a ton of money on this thing if I don't have to. So that's it, at least for me. I have over 20% in body. I think that's a decent idea. How long are you swinging job? I'm honestly, let's take a look at how this is setting up. It did pretty well last week, right? It had a nice day on Friday, but it's back here. It's kind of one of those patient swings for me. Here's your consolidation range. Obviously, if it breaks down under 50 cents, I'll be out. But why I'm okay with that because I scaled it a little bit out here over 60 as it was pushing up with staff moving. Staff, same sector, probably may pull back this week, so we'll see how that plays out. Job could come back down. I may look to rebuy that. It's just sitting in a really nice range, in my opinion, for just like an accumulation zone for a bigger pop, which is why I like it. I like it for a move to 85 and then potentially $1. Those are the two targets I have to the upside, which have not hit. So, it's been kind of just chilling down here. So I did trim some. And then I'm looking to rebuy those shares back. That's my plan. It's more of a patience play. I don't necessarily have a really precise time frame. It could be a couple weeks, a couple months. This will be one that I will also, if we see weakness in the overall markets for small caps, I'll just cut it, which would also, be about a 10-cent drop from right here, right? I will just cut it, move on. Maybe it gets news, but if we stop seeing bigger runners, we stop seeing stocks in the small cap space making big moves. When I'm talking about, 100% runners, couple 100% runners per week, if we stop seeing that and we're down to like 50%, 25%, 30% runners, that's a signal that even if this stock gets the news that I'm looking for or gets a bigger move or momentum to the upside that I'm looking for, it's not gonna go because the market's conditions are just not there. So it doesn't make sense to keep cash tied up there if it's not gonna make a move. It would make more sense to hold more cash, look for longer term plays, maybe outside of the small cap space, or hold more cash and even look on the other side. Look for some stocks that have been overextended that maybe aren't making sense valuation wise, that are setting up really overvalued for possible short idea. That's the idea. Job target wise, we're looking at first target up over like 40-ish%, and the second target would be up towards like 65%. So that's just kind of giving you a range of, it could be done in a day for sure, but right, if we stop seeing movement on stocks to that range over 25-30% consistently, each day, and we stop seeing that type of stuff, that's a signal that this is probably not going to be able to hit those targets, at least right now in the current market conditions, unless it had some extraordinary news, which is possible. And that's kind of like my fundamental signal almost in a sense to get out, just based on the market conditions. So that's how I'm gonna manage that, generally speaking, going forward. It's probably the next couple of months. As long as small caps stay hot, I'll stay in. And I'll be talking about that on the lives every week. So we'll obviously cover it. They're still hot, so there's no reason to get out, in my opinion, personally. ITRM, Panic Sell. We can look at ITRM. I think this is going to be an interesting one. A lot of people bought this one back up quickly, or at least a little bit, and then it fell back off. Let's see. Appreciate the donation. Do you think my body calls for October are safe? That gives you some time. I mean, that gives you some time. So I think that's probably a decent idea personally for something like that. I would maybe look to roll those out into like 2022. Wouldn't probably be a terrible idea if I had to say. But that gives you some earnings, that gives you some action, that gives you plenty of time. So it gives you at least the whole summer to go through and whatnot. It's probably okay, but it wouldn't be a terrible idea maybe to roll one or two or roll something into 2022, just for if you want a safer bet on the call side. Personally, that's why I don't trade a lot of options. I honestly might, and I missed out on a really good opportunity to trade NEO puts the other day, or SPCE puts, sorry. NEO as well on the Sell the News event after the delivery numbers. But it was because it was a day trade idea, so I would be fine trading an option for a day trade. But personally, trading on a swing idea or a longer term play, I'm more comfortable just going in heavier shares, right? Heavier share size. So for example, like I would be a lot more comfortable going in with like 25% of my account into body just shares rather than maybe 10-15% of my account in options or in calls. Personally, that's just how I would do it, but that everyone has a different style and strategy that works for them. ITRM, here's the problem with this, is that they may have a delay, right? So they may get like an extension for their date with the FDA. The FDA came out and was like, hey, we have some issues with your packaging and marketing, I believe, which is why the panic sell-off. Now, a lot of people think, okay, that means that that's a good thing because you only would have an issue with the packaging marketing, right, if it's going to get approved. So there's that front. There's also the front of, can they get it in order to come back to the FDA and have them say, okay, we're good on that, on our issue with the packaging and whatnot. Can they get that in time? So they may get an extension and there may be a bigger dip or another dip at that point to grab it then, which is a potential opportunity, I think, if that's what happens. If this thing comes down towards $1, I would say I would probably be inclined to grab something personally just for myself. That's it. That's at least what I would say. Let's see. Just for our splits, they have resale shares again. They always try to. That's true. I just need hope for a pop before October. I think that's true. You also, with the reality behind those body calls, what you could do, here's what you can also do. I'll pull it up. You get a pop in the coming weeks, months, prior to October. You get a pop like we kind of got a few days back. Thing goes up $12-13, maybe even more, who knows. If it pops that hard, maybe it becomes a meme stock, who knows, right? If you get something like that for 1 day or 2 days, you can sell half of those contracts and then use the cash that you just got from selling at least half the contracts or whatever, your position. Use that, buy shares, and then have the rest as options, or leave a little bit of an option play on there as well. So I would that's probably how I'd go about it. If you get a big pop, take that cash, sell something, buy the shares, and then just hold the shares. Then obviously you have the options as well. If things go crazy, those options print really nice. Obviously the shares are up nice. If things aren't going to go crazy, at least you minimize your downside and you still at least have shares, in the game. Probably the best way I would go about it. Do you check BBI? BBI. How is this bad boy setting up? It's sitting nice and low here. This thing had a nice pop up here at about $1 and then it pulled back. BBI, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I took for a day trade this week, if I'm not mistaken, and I got burned. Yeah, yeah, I got burned this one because I think I bought it like 107 or something, and then it ended up falling off. And um, no, I bought it here on the initial news that they dropped. I had an average, I want to say, like a little bit over 1, and the thing fell off. I just didn't want to hold it into the next day. Meanwhile, 4 a.m. Webull spike hits up to 135, so that would have been nice, but it is what it is. It is coming right back down to a pretty good level. So these are the setups that you kind of like to replay over and over and over. It's back down here under 90 cents, honestly, is solid, down to about 75. I wouldn't really want to see it go to 75, but that probably could be the last cutoff if you're playing it from just a technical perspective. 75 cents could be a good area to watch. Let's see. LHDX, recent IPO, starting to curve. Look at the weekly, not the daily. Not looking as great on the daily. Let's take a look. LHDX. The daily is curling, right, for sure, but we are up. And we look at the weekly on this thing. It's not a bad setup. It really isn't a terrible setup. I don't know much about them, so I couldn't say okay, yes. But it seems like it's got range up to about this area right here. So there's some resistance that it's going to have to grind through, really just right above where it's at, up towards about $8. Over $8, I think it has a potential shot towards 9 or 10, but it's got to kind of grind through. This could be one of those that you want to embrace a pullback if you like the story behind the stock here beyond just the technical setup. If it does pull back down towards the 50 SMA, which is at like just under $6, 550. If it pulls back under 6, that could be an opportunity to add with a stop loss maybe under 550 or $5. Looking for targets 9 to 10 could be an idea, or more, right? Or certainly for more. You have a bigger move potentially in line. Let's see. Join late. You can if you're joining in late or now, you can scroll back through. We talked about in the beginning. Definitely a good idea. And then this video also will stay up on the channel, so you can always come back to it whenever you want. I try to make it like an hour long or so it's not like too long, so people can kind of go back and forth and come and check on it. Let's see. Successfully withdrawn money from their Webull account. Issue with withdrawing. How long did it take? I believe I have done it once, and because personally I've just been letting my money compound. It didn't take too long. It was about a couple days, maybe a week or so, if I recall. It was a while ago. I personally haven't taken any money out of my account lately. I'm just letting it compound. But I haven't heard. I know that there's always, everyone has that concern. They're always skeptical with the broker. I haven't heard of many issues, unless I'm just not looking in the right places. I haven't heard of many issues with that, other than just maybe it taking a couple days. What's your thought on overnight pops, the meme stocks? Interesting. I don't know. They're very. It's tough to kind of get a sense on some of those things, to be honest. Speaking of meme stocks, I do want to pull up AMC and we'll talk about this one as well. But what we actually saw, if we look at AMC, right, this could be one of those gappers, right? This could be one of those overnight poppers for a quick gap move, because it did dip down sub 50 on Friday, but it recovered quite well. And then the after hours, it popped up. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially after a long weekend, people can recoup, right? I was thinking that AMC, after a long weekend, you had the opportunity, right, for someone going into this long weekend, for the market to open on Friday was a really good opportunity for shorts, because you kind of saw the volume was fading off. You kind of saw that things were kind of shaky. It was getting a little bit, it was kind of steady, and then it was kind of starting to kind of drop, right, the past couple of days. And it was an opportunity for shorts, and also people who were like, hey, I'm impatient. I want to take some profits going into the long weekend. Boom. There's your opportunity. That was what shorts took advantage of, but that was quickly bought up. So that was which was impressive, to be honest. I was impressed by how that got bought up, and it closed the after hours up over $52, which is impressive. So you can't knock that in my eyes. So this could be one that gaps up nicely into tomorrow morning. It's sometimes it's just a toss up in my view. The problem with the overnight gap plays is that they're interesting. Sometimes they work out really well, and sometimes they really can hurt you, because sometimes you'll play an overnight gap. Next thing you know, you wake up and it missed your target sell, or the stock dropped 10%, depending on how largely positioned you're in. You could have one of those situations where there's some crazy news that comes out overnight and the entire market's down massively. So that's always the downside risk with that stuff. Robin and IPO, I believe is it going to be HOOD? I don't know when that's going live, but I know that is coming. I know a lot of people are looking to short that, which is funny. Okay, let's see. CLSK, Clean Spark, held up a little bit last week. It's got some area right down here towards like $15, holding up in the 15s. Plenty of range on this one. So this one kind of broke out of that, descending triangle in a sense. Had an uptrend that kind of cracked, so we can get rid of this for now, but it's kind of meandering right now. It's kind of just meandering along, $15, seemingly holding as support. But it has plenty of range. This is definitely one. Also look at the volume. Volume has kind of been perking up a little bit the past couple of weeks. Generally, more so less downtrending volume compared, in terms of like volume bars have been holding up a little better than they have been. So it's not bad. Someone posted in Discord they had problems with withdrawing. I think the problem other people are also having is that depending upon how they manage their account, it might take time for settlement. So for example, on let's say a margin account, I believe, at least in terms of my account, if I have a good chunk of my cash in on swings and I'm day trading, let's say let's just say you had, a $10,000 account, and then you're like $8,000 in the market, and then each day you're day trading a couple trades here and there. And you're trading with $1,000 per those day trades. You'll utilize that little bit of cash, even though you still have cash. That cash hasn't settled, so I believe you have to wait till that money settles in order for you to be able to withdraw it. So that could be one of the issues people are having because they're utilizing that money for trades, but actually in order to withdraw that cash, it needs to settle, which takes those 2 days after a trade. So that could be one of those things. So if you are looking to withdraw cash at some point out of the account, I believe you'll want to make sure ahead of time that you set aside a chunk of cash and you don't day trade with that cash, because then you're just prolonging the settlement process of that cash. So let's make dogs a meme stock. Dogs, I mean, it has that potential. I really think it does. If you look at this thing, the name, right, just sets it up. The problem I've had is that every time I try to play a news pop on it, it always fades off on me. Every time. It has been kind of grinding up. It's getting over $2 quite nicely. So who knows? It has that setup. I could see it. They've also got some Petco orders, so there's actually a little bit more behind the scenes there. Could be setting up for a move at some point. We can dive into Wish. Wish is one of those retail crowded stocks. A lot of retail is in the stock. We'll see if it holds up on that 50 SMA. I actually was in Wish in my longer term account. It hit $15 and got rejected, so I trimmed it. And then I started to rebuy under 13. I started to rebuy, which I'm kind of setting it up for a longer term play. My mistake was not playing it back here, which I did watch it and I noticed it, and I didn't play it back in there when I initially had that major move the first day. But, it is what it is. So now I'm looking to buy some pullbacks for next couple of months at least, ideally, maybe even longer. So I'm seeing been very easy, no problems after the 2-day clearing period, just my personal experience. So there you go with Webull. We can look at Facebook. Yeah, I'm not opposed to looking at other stocks other than penny stocks, for sure. BLIN, scalping tomorrow if it breaks down. BLIN is actually one of the ones on my watch list for the day trade side of things in case I'm interested. It did pop to 10, I believe, right? Didn't it pop to 10? It hit 10.43 in the after hours. So if it gets over 10 again, it has some range. It's been holding up quite well the past couple of days. So this could be a nice play into tomorrow as well, especially if we don't get much news. If we don't have much news come Monday morning, that, usually what happens Monday morning or Tuesday morning in this case, you get some news that sets the tone, and either you'll get some solid news that a stock gets positive phase 2 or 3 or even phase 1 sometimes, and that stock gets all the attention in pre-market, or a stock gets a big contract or gets this or there's some really killer earnings, and then that stock's up 25, 50, 100% quickly, and then they're the volume shift there. If we don't get that, which we didn't get last Monday, that was MRIN. MRIN, there was nothing that really stole the show. So boom, MRIN went nuts and it kept going. So that's what I'm thinking about BLIN, is that same kind of idea. This could go crazy over 10 if nothing steals the show. But if something steals the show, this is definitely going to be one that a lot of shorts look to hammer. I'm telling you right now, because if it does kind of fade back off, shorts will hammer this one if everybody kind of goes to the next shiny object. That's kind of how you want to be at least playing this one personally. But if there isn't really anything crazy moving in pre-market tomorrow, this is where I'll be watching for a bigger move up. Okay, we can see Facebook. But I was saying about Webull, I will be withdrawing more consistently. The goal was, we'll see. My goal is to hit 100K in the account. We started at 15K about like 9 months ago. September will be the year mark. So at this point, right, I'm not looking to push the envelope and try to get there. I'm trying to be consistent in how I get there. So at least the way I'm looking to trade things is get to that 100K target. At that point, I feel like that's a pretty comfortable level where I'm in where I can play with a comfortable sizing on my swings, sizing on day trades. And then from there, each week or each month, whatever, I don't know what I want to do exactly right now, is then set aside, okay, any number over 100K the account is sitting at, the balance sitting at the end of the week or the end of the month, I'm going to take out 2/3. So I'm going to take out half. So let's say, right, I have a 1% week, right? You make $1,000. What I would do at the end of that week, or maybe at the end of the month, I would take out $500. So I want to leave some money in there to compound. I also have to understand taxes, but I also want to be able to take something out and start paying myself from the account. Ideally, that's how I plan on doing things. Facebook looks like it's solid. It looks like it wants a much bigger move. We did have a slight pullback mid last week. It pulled back to about 347, and it's going. So would like to see that 347 area holding up. Need to get up over that 358 on Facebook. But the trend's been really nice. Again, Facebook is one of those. 50 SMA holding up quite well. It did dip to the 200 a couple times, but it's been strong. It's been super strong, and QQQ has been strong as well. So as long as this QQQ keeps holding up, I would think Facebook continues to push. Apple has a really good chart as well. I was looking at Apple earlier today. Apple's got a really good chart. Look at this. It's kind of breaking out over this area right here. It had some resistance up around that 140. It does have some 145 where it got to a couple months back. So Apple up here, though, looks like it wants a much bigger breakout to the upside. So Apple is certainly setting up for all-time highs. This chart looks really good. Pullbacks, I think, are we want to embrace pullbacks and buy that up given the current conditions of the market right now, for sure. Solar plays, let's see. Sun W is going to pop. But solar plays, I like Run. I had Sun. I think I still have Sun. So Sunrun is right here. It's getting rejected at the $60. Sunrun's a good solar play as well, and it's a higher price play. But I like it. It broke out of this downtrend. It's recovering and pushing on up. I think we're still in an early inning for some of these energy plays. There's a lot of range still to go. So I don't think we've seen a huge rotation right back into a lot of these. There's a lot of different sectors when it comes to renewables, but we haven't seen a big solar rotation. So maybe we need a catalyst or a piece of news to do that. But Sun W looks really good here. It has some support here. I would say down towards $9. Look at this. It's holding that 200 SMA. So Sun W right here, I think if it holds $9, I think it's a good play. So right now, from the current levels, you're going to risk about $1 down, but I would look for upside up over $15 personally. So you're looking for a $1 risk for a $5 reward. I think the setup on this one is really nice for a swing, personally. Let me add it to my list as well, because this is one that is probably something that I would just toss in the account and let grind up. If I dive a little bit deeper into it, maybe I'll put a stop loss on it at 9, right, and let it grind its way on up. If I'm looking for kind of a more like a patience swing idea, right? It did go crazy. It pulled itself back, sub 10. Could be the opportunity right here. It's been, the trend is now being established. We're putting in higher lows. We're doing some nice things, which is good. Let's see. Outside of that, I'm going to wrap things up, guys. We've been going for about an hour. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. So let's take a look at futures. We are looking at right here. Let's refresh this guy. Green right now, but not by much. So again, that could change pretty quick, but green, but not by much. So, be careful of that into tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out. After the way we finished off last week, wouldn't be surprised for some continuation at least tomorrow. but we're probably going to need a nice pullback at some point here in the overall markets because, you don't just go up every single day. A pullback, and then, we'll see how that pullback is, how we see a response, right? Does it get bought up quickly, or do we see it kind of holding down? And that could be the signal for maybe, a little bit of a bigger pullback in the short to medium term. So we'll see how that plays out. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I will leave links and resources, like always, in the description box, as well as a link to Webull to get some free stocks. I have also been looking into a new brokerage account that people are talking about, Moomoo. Personally, I like Webull better. Personally, my just take, I like it a lot better. I think Moomoo has a lot of work to do to kind of catch up to Webull on that front, but there's some perks there, and they're giving out some great free stocks. So if you wanted some free stocks, you can then cash out and put it in a different brokerage account. There should be a link there to get up to like 4 free stocks when you sign up there, depending on how much you deposit. So just an option if you want free stocks. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's see how this week goes. I'm excited for the week. It should be fun. Some lessons learned last week, but we'll correct that for this week, and I'm looking forward to taking advantage of it, stacking the small wins, and there's no need to make it all back if you had a bad week last week or even a bad month. There's no need to make it all back in one shot, right? You'd much rather stack the small wins, and you see how the compounding game works. That compounding game really heats up as you build confidence, as you stack those small wins up, and as you slowly size up your positions and size up your account. Things can move fast, so there's no rush. Think of it as a long-term game. If you're compounding at a rate much higher than the market returns, you're on a good spot. You're in a good spot. Of course, always room for improvement. Thanks so much, guys. Hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace.